Yes. Okay. And you can see I'm a little different. I'm way down here. Hopefully this isn't too much in the way. Um, but I also can put myself up here for working with Lightroom, or when we switch over to Photoshop, I can put myself over here, you know. So we'll see. I kind of like this one. This one will be my default. Um, no more hiding stuff over my head, when I'm pointing to stuff. Hopefully, of course, now I'll be, pointing to stuff in the middle, and who knows. Anyway, I have a variety of images that I pulled for this today. And um, to kind of introduce you to what a profile is, a profile basically uh, tells the editing program, how am I going to render the colors that your camera has captured? Okay. So by default, well, I shouldn't say by default, but on the base level, your camera manufacturer will have instructions to editing programs how they should render certain colors. Because remember, we're capturing colors in a raw format according to how the sensor picks up those colors based on the RGB values. And hopefully you understand that by now. What the camera is doing is it's taking 3 black and white images with different filters in front of it, a red, a green, and a blue filter, and then mathematically calculating the difference between those filters in order to give a color value. And that's where we get the RGB values. Most cameras have built-in color profiles that you can set. And these are usually, your camera neutral. You can have it so that you can have, like, for example, if you do a lot of landscapes, you can select landscape as part of your camera profile, and it's set actually in your camera. You just take your camera, you go to the menu, you dial down, and you can set your color profile right in camera. And what happens is that when you import it into an editing program like Photoshop or Lightroom or any other program, that program's going to read what you set the color profile to for that particular image, and it's going to import it. All right. Once it's imported, you can, if you wanted to, you can change it. All right. And in here in Adobe Lightroom, if we go to the basic panel, all right, let's see, make sure. Well, I knew it. I knew I forgot something. I forgot my little spotlighty thingy. There we go. There we go. All right. If we go to the basic panel, okay, you'll notice that there is right here, you'll see profile. And in this particular case, it says camera neutral, which is pretty much what I set my cameras to. Simply because, again, I tend to be a little bit lazy with certain aspects of my camera settings. When I am going out shooting, I don't want to be changing my camera all the time based on what it is I'm shooting. So my camera setting, the color profile, I kind of keep it camera neutral across the board. So it doesn't matter what I am shooting. All right. The same thing with my color balance. My color balance, I tend to keep on something that's fairly neutral, and that's usually going to be cloudy. The white balance profile is cloudy. So it tends to be a little bit on the warm side, unless I'm using a flash, okay, which in that case, I keep my camera set to white balance flash, all right? And it's usually the case that when I'm shooting events, by default, I keep my camera on white balance flash. But when I'm going out just regular shooting in a group and I'm not using flash, I will grab my other camera, and that one's already set for cloudy or shady or whatever it is that I keep it at. And I don't have to worry about these settings. It's one less thing to worry about. Now I'm not concentrating on the camera. I'm paying attention to what I'm shooting. Okay? Because I know that when I come to edit these images, I can change that profile. All right. The other thing, and this is kind of a way of thinking that kind of caught on early with me with videography. Video People who capture video, they go with what's called a flat profile. All right, a flat profile kind of balances between the highs and the lows of your exposure range, and kind of neutralizes colors in order to keep everything within a certain gamut. And it's great for video because in video post processing, you can add your color grading to it, and a flat profile takes color grading really, really well. So I was thinking about that, and it says, you know what? That can probably be applied to still photography. So if I keep the most neutral, flattest profile, which is my camera neutral, it allows me to apply the color profiles that I want after the fact. So that was the mentality. That was the way of thinking. But in all actuality, because I'm shooting raw, it doesn't matter what I choose, okay? Simply because I'm going to be changing it after anyways most of the time, okay? So up to now, I've been using camera neutral, but I have a feeling after today, everything's going to change, because what I want to do is introduce you to adaptive color profiles. All right. So anybody have any questions as to what a camera profile, color profile is?
No.
All right. Okay. So within Lightroom, like I said, at the very top of the basics panel, you have your color profile. And if you click on that little drop down, it's going to open up this menu, and you're going to notice that obviously the one that is selected is going to be at the top. All right. And then it's going to be populated by a number of profiles. And in this case, you see the new one that's going to be added is adaptive color. All right. And below that, I have Adobe Color, Adobe Landscape, and Adobe Portrait. Those are the three that I normally would pick depending on the subject of my image. So if I'm editing a landscape, I will go ahead and switch and pick Adobe Landscape. If I'm doing a portrait, I'll probably pick Adobe Portrait. Something else, I usually go with Adobe Color. So like still life or product shots, I'll go with Adobe Color. All right. If you look all the way to the right hand side, you're going to see this little grid. Okay. And what this does is it opens up all your choices, okay, and you have a whole bunch of stuff. The top one is favorites, all right, and you can populate the favorites with whatever you want, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But you're going to notice that there are Adobe RAW formats, all right. So this is similar. I guess you can compare it to being similar to a camera profile. All right, Adobe RAW profiles are kind of these generic color profiles that they get applied to raw images that come off of a camera. So it doesn't matter what your camera is designated as. This one kind of reinterprets it, your raw file. And a lot of people like the Adobe color profiles because they tend to be a little bit more richer than, say, a camera profile. So those are available, and you'll see that there's 7. And you'll also notice that they kind of sort of match what your camera would say. All right, so your camera has, a portrait profile, a landscape profile, a neutral profile, a standard profile, and the whole 9 yards, even a monochrome profile. And Adobe RAW profiles kind of mirror that. So even though the names are one-to-one, the way they render it might be a little bit different. Okay. And then below that, we have, okay, obviously your camera matching. These are the ones that come off your camera. And you'll see that Adobe RAW has 2 additional ones than my camera does. We have some legacy ones. These are all black and white settings. I don't know why they call them legacy. I think they're held on from previous versions of Lightroom. I'm not 100% sure on that one. Okay. We have some artistic ones. Some of you may be familiar with these. And they got the very, very fancy name of Artistic 1, Artistic 2, Artistic 3, which gives you absolutely no clue what it's doing. But the nice thing is, if you hover over each one of these, you'll notice that in the main window, it kind of applies it temporarily, so you get a preview of what these are. All right. Now, in the past, I've mentioned that you can kind of, sort of, but not quite, think of these as like a filter or a preset of some type. They're not technically a filter. They're not technically a preset. It's just a way that the program renders the individual color channels, the R, G, and B channels, in order to create a color profile. All right. And of course, we have a whole bunch of black and white ones. And again, if you hover over them, they give you a preview. Some really funky ones. These tend to be what's called modern.
Doc,
Yeah.
Doc, if you click on one and you use that particular color, let's say, does it set up that way, or does it, after you're done with it, does it reset itself back to alternative color?
Nope.
Does it?
So what it is what you're doing at this point is you're telling Lightroom, I want you to represent my colors in this particular manner. So whatever you choose, that's what's going to apply to your image, and then you can then add it to your heart's content. Okay.
So it'll go back to normal after you're done with that photo.
What do you mean?
Well,
So after you select it, yeah, you just go back to the edit profile.
edit profile.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So basically, and here is we're just
John,
telling,
can I interrupt?
yeah,
I thought the way he asked it, but so these settings though, are they attached to the image you're working at, or they're
yeah,
attached to?
they're for this particular image only, not for a broad spectrum. All
Okay, so
right.
if I pick modern 3 for this particular image and I go to image 9304, it'll be all back to like you just said.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct. All right. So basically, like for example, my particular color profile coming off the camera is camera neutral. So it tends to give the colors kind of a little bit of a flat color look to them. All right. And you can see there's really not a lot of, color contrast. Okay. Whereas if I go to like this modern one, you can see that, oops, modern one, it's kind of really bumping up that blue across the board and making giving the whole entire image kind of like this blue cast to it. And you can see how much more vibrant that blue is, and even the green's a little bit more poppy. Okay. And there's a little undertone of magenta as well. It's I don't know if that's coming across on the video. So it totally shifts how the colors are being rendered, but it's only for this one particular image. So what we're doing is we're telling Lightroom, okay, this is what's coming off the camera. I want you to change it and apply this. Okay. All right. So basically, all I'm doing is I'm just introducing you to what are available within the program. So we have the modern, then we have some vintage, and of course, vintage tends to be a little bit more muted looking, whereas modern tends to be a little bit more crisper and contrasty and poppy. Okay, so what you would do is you would select the profile that best fits how you want to interpret the editing for your particular image. So now this becomes a starting point. Okay. Now, one of the things that I have done in the past is I haven't really paid too much attention to this simply because a lot of my edits, I don't go overly crazy for the majority of the work that I do. All right. Some of the more creative stuff, yes, I tend to push limits on that, especially when I'm demonstrating an edit, just to show you what is possible with a particular image, and how you can push colors and you can push luminosity, you can push texture. All right. So this is just another tool in your toolbox of how you can push colors in a certain direction. All right. Now, the benefit of using a good, solid color profile that kind of gets you moving forward in the way you want to present your image is that this color profile gets applied underneath any edits. In other words, the color shifts that happen are regardless of any modifiers that you make with any slider. Okay. So, for example, if you say, here it is, it's coming off the camera, I have it kind of camera neutral, the colors look a little bit flat. In order to get any kind of oomph to it, I would have to probably go in and add a little bit of vibrance, maybe boost up the saturation a bit. I could even, here, let me close this out. I could probably even go into my calibration and maybe pump up the blue saturation a little bit, maybe even the green saturation, in order to make those greens pop. Okay, so now you can see that in order to get this to start looking a little bit more closer to what I would like to, I have to play around with all these sliders in order to manipulate the underlying colors. All right, because as you understand, the calibration panel shifts those underlying RGB channels, the three gray scale images. All right, it shifts the values, lighter, darker, a little bit more contrast, a little less contrast. And what that does is it cascades throughout the three color channels in order to shift the color values to get what you want. All right. So I can pump up the saturation of my blues in order to make my blues a little bit stronger. Okay. I could also do the same thing. I can go to the basic panel and I could go, well, I can boost up the vibrance, and what that's going to do is it's going to shift the intensity of my colors in the midtones. All right, whereas saturation kind of does it a little bit more globally across the entire luminosity spectrum. All right, so now you can see I'm starting to pull my colors out a little bit vibrantly. All right, so if we look at the before and after, okay, we can see that we're getting a little bit more color contrast going on here. This is a little bit flat. This is a little bit more contrasty. Okay. And this is all being done by manipulating over here, manipulating a bunch of sliders. Okay. Let me go ahead and reset this. Okay. Whereas what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a virtual copy. All right. And on that virtual copy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply, let's browse. What was it? Here we go. The modern 01. Okay. So now if we compare the two, okay, let me blow this up. If we compare the two, we can see how much punch and color oomph that color profile gave my image. All right. So understanding that, hey, this is a peacock, and we want to kind of push those colors a little bit forward. Okay. This is a great way of getting there with a minimal amount of effort. All right. And all it takes is just to kind of browse through those profiles and find the one that fits closest to what you want to finally get to. Okay. So you may look at this as, well, it's a little bit too much. All right. Well, maybe that's not the correct color profile. Find something else. All right. But let's see. Let's go back to the develop module. All right. Here is, actually, let me go ahead and reset this. All right. We are back again to camera neutral. All right. What I want to introduce to you now is adaptive color. Adaptive color. And as with everything new with Adobe, it is going to use Adobe AI, Adobe Sensei, to kind of analyze your image. It looks at your image, understands what the image is, and then based on its analysis, it's going to make a suggestion as to how it should render the colors. All right, so let's go ahead and click on adaptive color. And you can see now that, let's see, this is before, all right, with my camera neutral, and this is the after. All right, so it punched it up a little bit, create a little bit of contrast without going to that extreme like that modern one. Actually, let me go ahead and I'll make another virtual copy, create virtual copy. And what I'll do on that one is I will, where I'll apply that modern one. Okay. So now if I take all three, okay, the first one over there, that's my camera neutral. The one above me is adaptive. And then the one over on the right-hand side, that's the modern one. Okay. So you can see modern one really added a lot of contrast. Whereas the adaptive just took what's there and punched it up a little bit. Okay. Without going overboard. All right. So oftentimes, this may be the best starting point for your images. Okay. And for me, this looks better to my eye than, what I was using before with camera neutral. Okay. And the reason I was using camera neutral is, an old way of thinking, which just doesn't apply now with modern cameras and modern image making. All right. So I'm going to be changing. All right. I'm going to be on my import, my import preset. I'm going to change it so that I think I had it so that it changes it to Adobe Color. I wasn't sure. It's now going to change it to the Adaptive Color Profile. All right. Because I think playing around with this is probably the better of all starting positions. Now, as with everything, it's not the final starting position. Again, you can always go in and change to something else. Okay. All right. So let's give it another try. Here is this is, let me make sure we are reset. Okay. Camera neutral. All right. This is Adobe Color. You can see not much changed between camera neutral and Adobe Color. All right. So now let's apply the adaptive color. Look at that. Holy cow. What a difference. All right. Notice specifically with this particular image how it brightened up the darker areas. All right. It opened up my shadows without me having to touch any of my shadow and black point sliders. Okay. So right off the bat, I've opened up my shadows and I still have 100% control of my sliders because none of that has been applied. Can you see the benefit? Does that make sense to you guys? Yeah? Awesome. I'm seeing some shaking heads. All right, let's see what it does with a portrait. All right. This is Ivy. Ivy is such, if you guys work with models, if you ever get a chance to work with Ivy, she's beautiful. She's got a great personality. She's easy to work with. But let's take that. As you can see, I have Adobe Portrait currently applied. All right. Let's go ahead and change that to Adaptive Color. And look at that. Adds instant pop to that image. Instantly. All right. Instantly. Okay. And like I said, it touches nothing in the basic panel here. None of these sliders. So I can still control my shadows if I want to. Okay. Here's another another portrait. This was done for a workshop. I have camera faithful on this one. I have no idea why. Let's put it to Adobe Portrait first. You can see the background lightened up just a tiny little bit. All right. Oh, am I freezing? I'm freezing up a little bit. Okay. Lightened up a little bit, but not a lot. Let's go to Adaptive Color. Bam. Okay. Now, this is where you can now say, all right, this might be a little bit too much. Okay, because what I was going for was a more of a moody image, a little bit on the darker side. Okay, this one probably opened it up a little bit too much, but because it did not touch any of my sliders, I can go ahead and bring those down. I can bring my shadows down. I can bring my highlights down. Okay. Or I can say, well, you know what? In this particular case, that may not be the best choice. Let's go back to Adobe Portrait. Let me reset these tones. Okay. The Adobe Portrait gets me a little bit closer to that low-key image that I was going for originally. All right. So it doesn't necessarily apply across the board like anything else. You have to pick and choose. Brian, go ahead and do me a favor. Just mute yourself.
All right.
Appreciate it. Thanks. Pick and choose your battles. All right. But I'm finding that this adaptive color profile really, really does a great job pretty much across the board with all your typical. I don't want to say typical because that's not really, no image is typical. All right. Usually when you're at this point of your photography, you're all experienced. You should be taking pictures with a purpose, with intent. Okay. But that intent tends to have a peak of normalcy, right? So for the majority of the normal photos that you take, this adaptive color profile is going to make sense. All right. The few outliers that you know hit the fringe, well, at that point you can say, well, you know, adaptive color profile is not working here. Let me go ahead and pick something else. And then it's easy. You just go to your color profile picker and you pick something else. All right. Makes sense? Any questions on this? All right.
So we have one question, Doug.
Yeah,
If you like that particular thing, can you put that in your import when you import it from?
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. All right. So in your presets, okay.
Yeah.
I don't even know what my
Oh, come on, what did I do?
I don't even know what my, I think this one, no. I can't remember. What you're going to do is, yeah, I'm not seeing what my default preset is. File, oh, let me go, tab, import. Let's see. Oh, okay. The last, oh, that's why. The last time I used it, I kind of set Adobe Landscape plus lens correction as my default. Why? I have Oh, I know why. It was I was editing all those landscape photos, the train and the that's why. All right. Uh, in your import, all right. As you can see here, I am in my import dialog box. All right. So if you go to import, all right, it opens up the dialog box. All the way here on the right hand side, apply during import. This is where you have your developed settings. Okay. And what you would do, the way you create these, let me go ahead and cancel, is you will take an image, doesn't matter what image it is, we'll go into the develop module and we're going to reset it. All right, make sure you reset. Okay. And for example, actually, I'll create one because I probably need it for myself. What we're going to do is we are going to apply all the edits that we would normally do across the board to all our images. So I've mentioned in the past, one of the things that I like to do is add a little bit of local contrast with texture and clarity to all my images. Okay. I used to reduce my highlights and open up my shadows by like 10 points. All right. I've since stepped away from that a little bit simply because as Adobe has progressed, has gotten better with how it renders certain things. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and apply adaptive color. Okay, my adaptive color. Okay, and you can see it kind of neutralized my highlights and opened up my shadows right off the bat. All right, so I'm happy with that. I don't need to do anything else in this part here. All right, I am going to add a little bit of clarity, all right, and a little bit of texture, okay? And my go-to formula tends to be whatever I put for texture, I usually put 50% of that in my clarity. It's just a formula that works for me. Doesn't necessarily mean that's the case, all right, for you, all right? So how much clarity? I used to put 40-20. So let me go with that. That gives images a little bit of that extra crunch and pop. Some people find that's a little bit too much. I kind of like that with my images, but you know, again, salt and pepper to taste. All right. The other thing I used to do is I used to add a little bit of vibrancy, but with this new adaptive color profile, I don't need to do that. All right. Other than that, the only other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and turn on my lens profiles, my auto lens profiles. All right. So auto, remove chromatic aberrations automatically, enable profile corrections. All right. This is done on a image per image basis. It analyzes the image, it reads through the EXIF information, finds the lens that you used, and applies whatever correction according to the Lightroom profile to that image. So it doesn't matter what lens you used, all right? It's not going to apply a standard lens correction across the board. It's going to individually check every image, see, oh, in this one you used, you know, lens A, it's going to apply that profile. Oh, this image that you're importing with the same batch is got lens B on it. I'm going to use that profile for that image. All right. So it's on a per image basis. Okay. So I want that applied across the board. All right off the bat. Okay. And that's pretty much it. Everything else really isn't normalizing edits. Everything else is pretty much artistic edits. Okay. So it's the normalizing edits. I want to get this to the point where I'm ready to go and start applying my creative edits. All right. And this new color profile, bang, it just gets me there right away. Okay. All right. So I've applied those few little things to this image. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to my presets. I'm going to click here. I'm going to create preset. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that into my user presets. And I'm going to call it import. That's, yeah, that's, yeah, I don't need anything fancier than that, right? Okay. And I'm going to uncheck everything by clicking check none, because I only want to apply the effects that I individually selected for this one. All right. And what are they? Obviously my treatment and profile. Okay. Treatment is, it's a color. Color treatment. Profile is the adaptive color profile. I added texture. I added clarity. And where is my lens correction? I did not put any manual stuff, so I don't need those. And I'm just going to, no, I don't even need calibration because I didn't do anything with that. Okay. We do have this new part here that was added not too long ago, which says support amount slider. In this particular case, I don't think I need it, but I'm going to keep it just because out of habit. As you build presets moving forward, you probably want to get that, make sure that's checked, because that allows you to adjust the amount of the preset when you apply it in your edits. Okay. All right. And that's it. I have everything else. That's it. And I'm going to go ahead and hit create. Okay. So now if I go to my, let me just close all these up here. My user presets. All right. Here it is. I have my import. So now when I go to my import dialog box, I'm going to go apply during import. I'm going to come here to user preset, click on import, and that is going to be applied across the board to every image that comes into Lightroom. Okay, makes sense? All right, so that's how you do it. All right, and we click done. All right. So if you have an import preset, you might want to take a few minutes and update it with this new color profile, because I'm finding this color profile is it just blew me away. Okay. And it's not too often that Adobe does something with Lightroom that just makes me go, wow. You know, it did it with the AI masking. It made me go, wow. All right. Because it just makes certain things so much easier to do. But that was a while back, you know. They updated some stuff in the tethering. It did not make me go, wow. Not at all. I'm still waiting for them to give me the wow with that tool. I've been asking. All right. But this one definitely made me go, wow. Okay. We good with that?
Doc,
Yeah.
question. When you were adjusting everything, and I noticed that your equipment that you're using was already on there. Now, does Adobe read that? Like
What?
it said, Canon, and then it
Oh, the
gave
lens
the
profile.
size of
Yes.
it,
Yes.
it reads it automatically.
It reads it because when it imports, it's going to grab all that information.
Yeah.
Your camera actually embeds it into the raw file.
Isn't that the
Right.
metadata?
That's all the metadata. Yeah. So Lightroom uses that metadata in order to apply certain things. All right.
Now, do
So
I have to open something or do I have to click something on to have that happen automatically, or does it just happen automatically?
no, it does not happen automatically. If you want it to do it, to apply it automatically, you have to do what I just did, create a preset that applies that camera profile change
Okay.
to the lens
I'm gonna
and
write
tell
that
it,
down.
when you import my images, I want you to apply this. So that's part of that import.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Let's do something fun. All right. If there are no more questions about any of this, let's do something fun. All right. I recently posted. Uh, Brian is the one that got me, that introduced me to the Facebook group. Oh, what's the
Oh, rediscovering
discovering?
Connecticut through for your photos.
What? Yeah. Let me pull that up. I love that website. They got some really, really great. Here, let me pull this right here. Rediscovering Connecticut through your photos. All right. Um, so I want to thank Brian for turning me onto this group. It's really, really cool. It's great because for one, it's a nice photo community, and you can interact with other photographers. All right. But what I like the most about it is it lets you see parts of Connecticut that maybe you normally wouldn't see because you either live on the complete other side of Connecticut, or, and you're never up in that area, or it's so this out of the way little spot that no matter what, you would probably never find it. So it's a great way of finding unique scenery here in Connecticut, and so if you're a landscape photographer, if you're a wildlife photographer, if you're a nature photographer, and you want to explore something new, you know, you can look through here and you can say, wow, that's a place that I would like to go and check out. You know, I love that image. Okay.
You mean that red barn on Vernon, Connecticut?
Yes.
I live near here. I'm going to check that out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and then the other thing is, you can also see how other people are editing their images and maybe get some ideas with how people edit. You know, so I mean, look at this. This is gorgeous. Look at that image. That's fantastic. I got to give that a heart. Oop. Got to give that a heart. I love that. That's beautiful. You know. So if you are not a member, it's this group by invitation only. Do you know, Brian?
I don't know if it is or not.
Yeah.
I don't know how I came across it, but
Yeah, I mean, it says it's public and it says it's visible. Um, but here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put that in the chat. If anybody's interested, go check it out. If it's something that's interesting to you, go ahead and sign up. Um, I don't think you need to be invited into this group. I think you just go in and ask
I
to
think you
join.
just join. But I believe they still do it to this day. If you submit an image, it's always approved by an admin.
Yes. Well, yeah. So um, yeah. So they want to control the quality of the images and the types of images, obviously. Okay. Uh, they want to make sure that nobody's coming in to spam the group. But after a while, the admins will see that if you've been consistently posting quality images that reflect the intent of the group, they'll go ahead and set you on um, auto approval, which, believe it or not, I hit that mark. I'm auto approved now. It still needs approval, but it's auto approved. So uh, I guess the admin must like the images I've been posting because they went and auto approved me. All right. But the nice thing is, like I said, you can, I mean, look at this. Waterfalls. All right. Middletown. Okay. Now, in this case, they just said Middletown, not much information. But the nice thing is, I can contact this person and say, hey, I just saw that beautiful waterfall photo that you took. Can you tell me exactly where that is? And they'll be able to help you, you know? Um, so anyway, I had posted this and, we got a lot of, comments, beautiful, your typical attaboys, okay? But this particular image is the inspiration for today's edit. Okay. This looks like a night shot of one of the, I think it's one of the dormitories. It's Vanderbilt Hall. Vanderbilt Hall in Yale. Okay. Looks like a night shot, right? This was taken during the day. So this is one of those, I love doing this with some of my images, is converting it from day into nighttime. All right. So what I want to do today is I want to take another one of my images from Yale that I took during the day. It was during a photo walk with Milford Photo. And I'm going to go ahead and convert it so it looks like a night shot. Okay. So that's what we're going to do. All right. Actually, I guess I can close that. Everybody got the link, right? All right. So for that, I have this particular image. Okay. And I've only done one little thing to this just to save a little bit of time. Let's see. Let me open up in the develop module. All right. And what I've done is I have removed these people. All right. There's a little bit of a foot here. And then I got 1, 2, and 3 people standing around. I was waiting and waiting and waiting for people to move out of my way so I can get the nice clean hallway, but the group was moving on and these guys were kind of like lagging behind. And I'm like, well, I took the shot and hope for the best. But the nice thing about it is with the AI removal, poof, you know, they're gone. They're gone. People are gone. All right. All right. So this is what the image looks like. And as you can see, I have the Adobe landscape. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on Adaptive Color and see what it gives me. And right off the bat, it opens up those shadows. Oh my God. Look at that. I open up the shadows without even having to touch any of my shadow manipulation sliders. That's fantastic. All right. Why is that particularly important for this particular image? Because what I want to do is I want to convert this from a daylight shot to a nighttime shot. And that means I'm going to need to lower some of these exposures. Okay. And if I took the previous, actually, let me go back. Adobe Landscape. If I take this and I bring my exposure down, all right, yes, it's bringing down that outside lighting down, but it's also all this inside here is also getting darker. All right, so now I brought everything down, and now I want to bring this up. I have to fight that initial drop in exposure to compensate for it. All right, so I'm fighting one against the other. All right, makes sense? Okay. Excuse me. With the oops. Let's go back. With the new adaptive color, let me reset my. There we go. With the new adaptive color, all right, it opened up those shadows without me having to do anything about it. So now all I got to do is I bring my highlights down. All right. I can even open up my shadows a little bit more if I want to. Okay. And then I can bring my exposure down. Actually, you know what? Before I touch that, let me set my black point and my white point. My white point is probably too much. I'm probably going to bring that down a lot. Okay. Because now we have to try to understand what is the difference between a photograph taken during the day and a photograph taken at night, other than the obvious there's not enough light. Okay. Fundamentally, when there isn't a lot of light, there are certain things that happen to our perception of color. All right. And that is that colors tend to become a lot more muted. Okay. Also, contrast tends to drop. We start losing a lot of contrast. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to mimic that and change the daylight image into something that would resemble more of a nighttime image. And that is, I want to, you know, maybe reduce some of this this contrast. Okay. The other thing is we lose a lot of color. All right. And we also get a color cast. Now during the day, you know, during the day, high noon, when the sun is up, we have a color temperature that is close to 5,500. Okay, 5,500. This tends to give us those clean, bright whites. Okay, But what happens at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day when the sun is lower in the sky? The sun goes through a lot more of our atmosphere, and it gets not only diffused, but the color shifts. The color temperature tends to shift more towards a yellow. All right. However, at night, all right, when the sun dips down below the horizon and we are no longer getting that yellow cast, we get a totally different color cast. We get a blue color cast. All right. So that's what we're going to do is with a white balance, we are now going to shift that into the blue. Those of you who are fans of the older movies, you know, those movies made in the 50s and 60s, especially once color film became a little bit more standard practice in the film industry, one of the techniques that was used to mimic a night shot, because, you know, film back in the day was not rated for low light photography. So if you needed to shoot a night scene, you couldn't do it at night because there wasn't enough light to expose the film. They would shoot it in the day and then manipulate it to make it look like it was shot at night. Look at some of those old movies. You're going to see very strong contrasty shadows during the night. Okay. So that's one thing you want to watch out for. If you want to convert something from day to night, try to find something that doesn't have a lot of strong shadows, because that's pretty much a telltale that you're doing the conversion. Here we have very soft shadows because it was very overcast. But we're going to add a lot of blue. And you don't want to push it all the way because this is a very unnatural blue, okay? We want to keep it within the realm of reality, all right? And basically what we're doing is we're taking all that very saturated color and we're shifting, we're removing a lot of the yellow, but we're also removing some of that that saturation, all right? And we can help it along by maybe not saturation. Let's try a little bit of the vibrance. We'll get rid of, nope, see, that's not going to do it. That's going to give it, well, yeah, maybe. Not too much, just a couple of points, maybe about 10, 12 points in a negative. That looks pretty good. It's a little bit much. We're going to get there. Okay. We're going to, let's see, open up the blacks a little bit. All right. The shadows, we're good. Okay. Our highlights, we're already maxed out with the highlights. Okay. But you can see if this was at night, yeah, that's an awfully bright night. That would be like full moon plus, okay? So we need to take our exposure down, all right? Maybe compensate our shadows a little bit, all right? And now it's looking more like a full moon shot, okay? All right. Now, even though this was a daylight shot, you can see that this hallway was fairly dark. So the overhead lights were on. And it's kind of nice because this allows us to really play around with those lights. Okay. So what I'm going to do, let's go to 50%. Yeah, here we go. Okay. Trying to make some local adjustments that kind of get us a little bit closer to what we want. Okay. Radial gradient. I'm going to go ahead and make a nice large round radial gradient. Okay, I'm going to keep the inner diameter fall off very, very small and pretty much close to where the light source is. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and add some exposure. Okay, and you can see that it's just taking what's there and brightening it up. All right, but these lights are very warm lights, so we need to warm this up in order to counter all the blue that we added previously. So I'm going to go ahead and going to go to my my color balance, my white balance here, and I'm going to push this to the yellow. I'm probably going to max it out. Now, a word of warning, depending on your color mix, all right, adding yellow alone may not do it. All right, it might give you a little bit of a green cast, and that's kind of where we're starting to get here. So we're going to take the tint and we're going to add a little bit of magenta to it just to kind of counter that green balance. All right, if that is not enough, we can always go here to our color and we can always add color. And right off the bat we have, oops, will it let me do this? Nope, not with the zoom. We have 3 warm tones from very minor influence all the way to a really, really golden saturated influence. Okay, and actually that doesn't look too bad. Okay, all right, and maybe add a little bit more. All right, so I'm just looking at what this is doing to affect the surrounding area. Okay, all right, I'm going to go ahead and add another one, another radial gradient. All right, I'm just going to put it here for a second and open this up. I'm going to go ahead and add this so it's going right over, just over that. Bring that down. I'm going to once again bring up the exposure. All right, and now it looks like that lamp is really well lit, but we're getting a lot of overspray, I guess you can call it. Okay, which I don't want. Okay, because now if we look at the light fixture above it, we're lighting that. All right, this light's supposed to resemble like it's coming from within that light fixture. All right, so I don't want this particular effect lighting the outer container. So I'm going to go ahead and hit subtract. I'm going to pick a brush. All right, and I don't want a lot of feather on my brush. I want to make it fairly tight. All right, because what I want to do is I want to erase everything around here. All right, flow and density is at 100%. All right, and I'm just going to come in real close to my light source. All right, if you want to see what you are doing, letter O for overlay allows you to really see what you're erasing and make sure that you are getting everything. All right, and we'll go here, make sure we're getting all of that. Okay, all right, and I want to make sure that, good. Now all we have, let's zoom in a little bit more. All right, we have that little section there. So I'm going to make my brush smaller. I'm using the bracket keys. All right, and what you can do is you can click, shift, click on the other end, and just go back and forth and make sure that's cleaned up. All right, click, shift, click, click, shift, click. All right, and that cleans it up. All right, take that off, zoom back out. All right, let's turn that off. And now we can see that we have a lit, a lit, let me turn it off, turn it on, turn it off, turn it on. All right, this one here might need a little bit more of a yellow boost. There we go. Okay. All right. And then all we got to do is repeat that for the other two. And as it gets further away, we're just going to make those smaller. Okay. The other one way you can do it, depending on your image. Okay. Let me go ahead and zoom in here. Oops. Let me just move this here. I can take this mask, this radial gradient, all right, and I can duplicate that radial gradient, all right. I'm going to bring it over here, shift, and make it smaller, all right. Apply that right to there. Actually, I'm going to put that so it's right over that. Maybe expand this a little bit, bring this down, turn that just so it's not hitting the top of that. All right. Okay. And if I wanted to, I can go ahead and duplicate that for the back one. Oops, wrong way. Duplicate, shift, and just make it a little bit smaller. Okay. And we can do the same thing with, all right, so this is, we'll call it Lantern Glow. And mask 2, this will be the lanterns themselves, lantern. Okay. We're going to take this radial gradient 1. We're going to duplicate that. We're going to move it down here. And look how that just lightens up. Okay. Now, here's where it gets tricky, because this brush, all right, you can see that the brush from the first one is now affecting this one, all right? So what I can do here is now bring that back in, and I can use the existing brush. Okay, let's make that a little bit larger. And I'm going to paint around this. Oops. Got a little bit too carried away. All right. Before I do that, I probably should apply that last one. All right. So duplicate that and bring that down. Make that a lot smaller. All right. Remember, this one also needs to be a lot smaller. So it just covers that lantern. Just covers that lantern. Okay. And then we go to our brush. Overlay. Brush. Yeah, for some reason, there we go. Brush. Where's our brush? And we're going to erase. All right. Just take your time. You want these masks to be really, really, really there. Okay. These far ones, well, you know, I don't know. Can we get in there? Is it necessary to get in there? All right, maybe, maybe not. We can try using the contrast. That might remove it. Okay. If not, just make your brush small. Shift click. Shift click. This one might be a little bit too small. Who knows? Yeah. Oops. Yeah. Very tight. Okay. May not even be needed. You can see we're getting a lot of noise there. Okay. Oops. All right. So that's our lanterns. Turn that off. Okay. Before, after, before, after. All right. Now we have our lanterns lit. Now we need to, we have our incidents. Okay. And because these are what are called practical lights are lights that are within the image that causes some kind of effect. We need to show that effect. All right, so we're going to go ahead, create another radial gradient. I'm going to put one as if it's landing directly underneath. I'm going to angle this a little bit. Okay. I'm going to bring this out a little bit more here. I'm going to bring the exposure up, and we're going to add some warmth to this. All right. That's a little bit too much. Maybe this second one down. That looks pretty good. All right. Size it accordingly. Place it so it looks natural. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate, wrong way. Duplicate that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply that one to the wall. All right, so I'm going to rotate this, and as if the light is hitting the wall. That looks pretty darn good, right? I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that one more, and I'm going to go ahead and rotate back, and I'm going to apply it to the ceiling directly, but let me move this out of the way. Apply that to the ceiling as if the light is interacting with that ceiling. Okay. All right, now we turn it off, we turn it on. Okay. All right, I'm going to do one more radial gradient, and I'm going to put it right inside here. Let's see how we can do this so it looks natural. There we go, a little bit. We're going to add some exposure and highlight. Add some warm tone. Maybe open up the blacks a little bit. There we go. Boost the contrast a little bit. All right. Now notice I did not copy the one from that first one, simply because the new location is further in. It's a lot darker. The adjustments needed to light that part of the image is different than the front. Okay. So this area here, let's try this way. This area here is different than this area here. All right. This is lighter, while this is darker. All right. So the manipulation of those two different areas have to be handled differently. So I'm going to use two separate masks. Okay. All right. So we expand this. We're not really seeing a lot on the wall there, you know, but let's try. I'm going to go ahead and, oh, I keep doing this. we want to do it here. Duplicate, mask, and instead of putting it on the right-hand wall, I'm going to put it on the left-hand wall, because the left-hand wall is now a little bit more visible. Okay. And let's bump up the contrast. There we go. And that now looks like we're getting some light. Okay. Before, after, before, after. Okay. Let's close off the masks. And I'm going to bring my exposure down a little bit more. Maybe bring the highlights up just a touch. And that looks pretty darn good. Okay. So before and after. Before and after. Okay. We can do a little bit more here. What we can do is, oh, I know what we can do. Let's see if we can go into our color grading. All right. And in the highlights, we can add a little bit blue in our highlights. Actually, these aren't highlights, are they? All right. These are our highlights. All right, we're going to add a little bit of warmth to our highlights. Okay, because remember, it was a little bit on the greenish cast. So let's see if we can bring some of that yellow out a little bit more. Okay, our dark tones, all right, those are our shadows. Maybe that we want a little bit on the blue. All right, not a lot. Or maybe not. Let's see, can we add, maybe if we add a little bit of warmth to those. Because those are our deep dark shadows here. That's all in here. All right, so that makes sense to have it a little bit on the warmer side. Our midtones, that's what's coming through the doors. That we might want to push a little bit more into the blues. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Yeah. And calibration, usually this would be done first, but yeah, we'll reduce the green, pump up the blue, pump up the red a little bit. Yeah, there we go. So before, after, slight change. Okay, good. And that pretty much turns a daytime photo into a nighttime photo. Any questions?
Inspired now.
Inspired.
I
Awesome.
think I had the same shot or the same hallway, and
Yeah.
it's also dark. Yeah, and right after this, I'm gonna go look at it, and I'm gonna pull up my photo and spend probably until 3 o'clock in the morning to get it look half as good as yours.
But, well, you know, if we break it down, you'll
Yep.
notice I really didn't do anything crazy.
No,
You know?
and then I got a reference to go back to it. Let's go back to the YouTube video. If I
Yep,
need
yep. And we're still recording. No glitches. So that's awesome. All right. So yeah. So and then, you know, from here you can maybe add a little bit of, you know, maybe you want to bring up the contrast a little bit more on the outside, you know. Oh, let's add a little bit of clarity. I like adding a little bit of texture and clarity. Okay. You can also play around with the dehaze. Ooh, look at that. That really makes it pop. Oh, I'm glad I did that. Okay. So let's see. I like nice round numbers. 30, 15. We'll pump that up to 30. All right. Yeah, that looks awesome.
That looks great.
Before,
That,
after,
that
before,
hallway
after.
is
Yeah,
spectacular.
you know, awesome. Okay, guys, so give it your all, you know, and actually, you know what? I think I might add one more. All right, even though we're not seeing it, there might be another light above us. Who knows? Maybe. Let's add another gradient. We'll put it as if it's here, kind of influencing this lower section. So let's make it a little bit on the warm side. Let's bring it up. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Now we have this nice linear leading line pulling in. I like that. That opened it up.
Go ahead, I go to the left side on the wall. Bring out some detail, some light on the wall. On the
Yeah,
left side.
actually, what I can do is I can probably go to this one here and just expand this one a little bit more this way. There we go. There we go.
I'm talking about the other side.
Oh, over here.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
Yeah,
Right.
we'll try it. I'm not sure
It'll probably bring out the detail of the.
if anything, maybe that little bit of the arch. All right, that's yeah, okay.
There.
Yeah. Okay, good call. Good call. I didn't see that. But yeah, good call. I like that. Awesome. See, you know what to do. You know what to do.
It was just a good guess.
Awesome. That is awesome. All right, we can call that one done.
We can call it a
I'll-
success.
I'll go ahead and post this with that other Yale one on that group with the link to the video. We'll see.
Sign your name to it.
Yeah. You know, it's funny when I usually output it with my logo on it. I guess I clicked on the wrong one for that one. So yeah. All right, guys. We're a little early on this one today, but that's good. Any questions on any of this? All right.
No, I can't wait to
We
dive
got-
into it. So.
We got some inspiration. Let me drop down here. We got some inspiration. That's awesome. Can't wait to see what you put out. All right. And some key things, because every once in a while I'll go out with the intent of photographing something that I want to convert from day to night. First of all, one of the big benefits is that converting a daytime photo to nighttime photo gives it, in my opinion, a nicer, more romantic mood than actually photographing at night. All right. Photographing at night, in my opinion, is more about the lights that are in the scene. All right. So night photography is great for stars. All right. If you want to capture the stars, cityscapes, if you want to capture all the lights from the city. All right. Car trails as it weaves through the road. Perfect. All right. But otherwise, yeah, you know, unless the lights are fantastic, Night photos tend to be a little bit, underwhelmed. All right. So the nice thing about this is that you can create, you can alter the mood going from day to night. You can alter the mood so that it looks more romantic. But the key thing is that you want some type of practical lights to be present in the scene that you capture, because that's what gives it that romance, is those practical lights. All right. So make sure that there are street lamps, even if they're not lit. Okay. You can light storefronts, even if normally they wouldn't be lit. Okay. And because you're taking them during the day, oftentimes you can pull some of that detail that's behind the glass, so that when you light it, you can see what's in those storefronts. Okay. The other trick I mentioned earlier is you want, obviously, don't shoot where the sun is present. All right, because you're never gonna kill the sun for a night shot. Okay. So oftentimes, overcast days or a lot of cloud cover tend to convert to night photos really, really well. And, putting the sun behind you. But in that case, also, you want to make sure that you're not casting a lot of very heavy contrasty shadows. Can you have shadows with a full moon? Absolutely. But, if you really want to recreate the mood, if you have softer shadows or no shadows at all, that's usually the best conversion. All right. So I tend to, pick days that are heavily overcast because that's going to give you, some of the better conversion shots. Okay. And of course, having a little bit of directional light, yes, does work. All right. You want some of that light, because that's what we're doing here, is we're manipulating the existing light in order to give us those highs and lows, the lights and darks and the midtones. We need those. Okay. We're just changing the color temperature on them. All right. So having a little bit of a directional light helps. Just don't overdo it with the shadows. Okay. Also, watch your dynamic range, your exposure range. All right. And another reason for shooting in overcast days is you can control your contrast so that you're not shooting heavy contrast. Because if you need to lighten up some of these shadowy areas, it's better if there's some detail there rather than shadows that have gone to black and you'll never, ever pull anything out of those. Okay? So being able to manipulate those shadow areas is key to a good conversion. So you want to make sure that your exposure, your dynamic range is within your exposure range. Okay? So those are probably the top tips for this type of photography. All right. Architectural photography, as you can see, really lends itself for this. So have at it. All right, guys. Any last minute questions? Anything that needs clarification here? No. Okay. Awesome. Thank you once again for spending another day with me. Next week, I'm not going to be on. Also, I am in contact with a group out of Ohio. They want me to come out and give them a full day workshop. And unfortunately, it falls on the first or second Monday. I can't remember. All right. First or second Monday of the week. So when I am out there, I will not be able to do a Zoom session. It'll probably be the first one I've ever missed.
Well,
All right. So we'll just have to make it up at the end of the month for you guys. Okay. All right. And on that note, there's another group in Ohio I will be doing a presentation for. Their presentation also falls on a Monday, but for them, it's going to be a Zoom session. It's going to be a very specific Zoom session. So you guys are invited to that. It's for their members mostly, but you know, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be rolling them into what we do here. So we're going to have, for that one day, we're going to have a really good sized crowd. All right. And the topic of that is how to build a business calculator for your business, a pricing calculator. So hopefully that'll be of interest to some of you. For those of you who want to sell some of your work, you know, and services, this may be of benefit to you. So that'll be coming up in June, July. I can't even remember. It's so far out ahead. So I just wanted to give you a heads up now. Okay. So once in March and once in June or July, we're going to have company. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you once again for joining me to another edition of Learn Photography with Duck. As always, I really do appreciate your support on Patreon. It helps make this, you know, worthwhile. It helped pay for this. I appreciate you guys. All right. Hopefully that looks, and these shitty lights are probably going to go. I'll probably get some better lights, you know, because I don't know, have they been flickering? Every once in a while, I'll capture a flicker. These are like 15-year-old lamps. So, all right. But anyway, have yourself a great one. Stay safe, especially with the ice that's been forming. And we'll see you next week. No, not next week. Week after.
Mhm.
All right. Week after. All right, guys. Where are we? All right. Take care.
Thank you for watching Learning Photography with Duck. Brought to you in association with Milford Photo, your local full-service camera store. Located in downtown Milford, Connecticut, Milford Photo offers you a personalized shopping experience. From the latest camera gear to printing and framing services. And, of course, educational workshops to teach you the finer aspects of photography. Don't forget to tell them Duck sent you.